Football made simple. Become great at your craft by finding ways to make it simple for those around you. This is the Coaching 101 podcast hosted by Find a Way Productions with your co-hosts Daniel Chamberlain and Kenny Simpson.
What is happening, coaches? We're in the evening again, Kenny. The last time we did this was our little Coaching 101 After Dark episode. So going back to back here with some guests. We are joined tonight by Kevin Swift out of Oregon. Coach, you just said that you talked about having a freezer full of salmon and elk, and honestly, I'm ready to pack my bags.
Yeah, I don't hunt because hunting's always football season. But a lot of my former players and people that I work with are more than generous of elk and venison, and I catch the salmon, I catch the halibut, but if it's on four legs, someone else is either bow hunting or shooting it. There's a lot of bow hunting here because it's easier to get a tag. So,
for sure, I'm sure. Yeah, I've done gun. I want to do the elk archery gun. I don't care, but Lord have mercy, they want a pretty penny for those tags anyways.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That's the story of the West. I don't know who I was talking to. The West has always been exceedingly overpriced.
Yeah, that's okay.
That's why it just is.
Awesome, man. Well, hey, we do appreciate you joining us tonight. Real quick, why don't you give us an introduction? Just kind of talk about your a short snippet, an elevator speech of your kind of your coaching journey, where you are in life, and all that good stuff.
I'm a third generation coach. My father coached and taught for 52 years, and I swore upon his grave that I would never do that. So I started in 1983 at a small college, Claremont McKenna College in Southern California, for a great head coach, and then stepped away from coaching on a permanent basis in 2018 once I hit 40 years, and then retired in 23. A buddy of mine over in the Rogue Valley, where the population is much bigger, begged me to come over and run his defense. So I got a little trailer and hauled it over there. Thought it would be romantic and nostalgia, and it sucked. I missed my wife. I had a blast coaching. I had a great view of the Rogue Valley and the mountains and Table Rock. I mean, but we all get married for a reason, and you come to realize that while you may be busy at night or that, you still like coming home to someone who's going to say they love you and have a meal for you. And I said I'd eat right, and I didn't do that. I said I wouldn't drink too much, and I didn't do that. I had a great time coaching, and Seth Wilmack, the coach at Critter High School, is a longtime friend of mine. I had a great experience. I chose not to go back, not because I didn't have fun, but I thought 41 years was good. And we had a little health scare with my wife. And you kind of wake up and go, what am I doing 4 hours away from the woman I love at this age? And
that's a long way.
So I'm working on I don't put out books as fast as Kenny or my buddy Ed on the East Coast. I'm putting a series of short stories about my coaching experience in Oregon. And it's not going near as fast as I like because I got a wedding I got to do. I got one of my daughters. I'm flying down to Texas on Saturday. I'm going to drive her all the way back to the Oregon coast and kind of move her back here for a while. So, I thought retirement would make me some downtime to write, and all it does is allow me to work on my house and say yes to the cost of the wedding. And I'm having fun. I stay involved. I mean, I do a lot of consulting. I break down film for people, particularly my buddies in Southern California. I've lived in Oregon now 29 years, but I'm still a Southern Californian and really proud of that. They hate that, and it's a tough deal with it. I said, hey, all your timber ruined where I lived, so it's only fair that I come up and screw with you guys a little bit. And I love it here. I do. It's a great place, but most of my close coaching associates and friends are still in Southern California.
Well, there we go. Well, man, like I said, we're glad to have you on the podcast tonight. We appreciate you for jumping on and making some time for us. I know that the time difference is pretty crazy. So, Kenny, real quick, man, why don't you hit us with the quote of the week, and we'll jump through these ads and get in this conversation.
Yeah, so quote of the week, I know we're going to talk about longevity with Coach. So I went with, this is out of Team Themes Volume 6, which will come out next year. So all the other team themes are available at the website, fbcoachsimpson.com, 1 through 5. This is coming from 6. And I think the theme on this one was finish, which I thought was kind of a cool theme for what we'll be talking about tonight. The quote is from Bill Belichick. It's a pretty simple quote. It says, the hardest thing to do is to keep doing the simple things well when you're tired. And I thought that was probably really appropriate. Of course, we've got Coach on here who will get to kind of speak to, I think it's kind of cool. This episode, you got Daniel, kind of you're on the front end. You got me, who I think I'm nearer to the end, but I'm not there yet. And you got Coach Swift,
it's not easy to give up, Kenny. It's not easy to give up. It's really
Right.
not easy to give up.
And then you got Coach here who is at the end. And so you kind of, I think we're going to have a good, different viewpoint of the questions you're going to ask tonight. But I do think this is what's important. And I think all of us would agree with that. Like, even early on, it's hard to do simple things when you're tired. And I've learned as I've gotten older, I've kind of calmed down a little bit as I've gotten older. But my challenge now is I've got to continue with the same intensity on the standards I hold. I might not be as boisterous and, vocal and all that stuff, but I've still got to maintain the same passion for what I'm doing, even as an older coach. And Coach can probably speak to that more as we get to that point.
Yeah, for sure. Well, awesome. Well, real quick, knock out these ads and we'll get in. Hey, guys, I want to remind you of Ace Sports. Go to acesports.com and check out the stuff they're doing. Email mark.bridges@acesports.com. Ace Sports is going to be your top tier video board people to bring in and not only get a high quality video board put it up in a good amount of time and walking you through the whole process, holding your hand while you deal with the fundraising and getting that board paid for. Remember that there is a little sticker shock at the beginning when you see the price, but 93% of schools that use Ace Sports never make a payment on a board. The ad revenue pays the board off for you. And then you end up in Kenny's case where you've had the board 7 or 8 years and you're redoing contracts and you're just putting money in the bank. So excellent thing if you're trying to fundraise for, regardless of size of your school, 1A to 7A, whatever all you guys have. Y'all have a bunch of different A's out there. We can find a board size for you. So check out acesports.com. Winning Edge Performance Analytics is the other one. Doug is still working on his 2.0 of his product. So make sure you're checking that out. Jump over to winningedgeperformanceanalytics.com. Check it out. If you sign up, use the promo code 20offcoaching101 for a 20% off discount for your first year. And last but not least, Blended Threads LLC out of the Jones/Choctaw, Oklahoma area. If you're looking for coaching gear, I've been working with them this week for a couple schools that have reached out since the last podcast. So especially if you're in Oklahoma, but realistically anywhere across the nation, they can hook you up. Buddy of mine that's running it, a military guy for, I think he did 22 years. And then he's been a police officer for that long or longer. So, check out Blended Threads LLC for any of you need hats, shirts, jackets, pullovers, sideline gear, wear to class everyday gear. You check them out, blendedthreadsllc.com. You can email morgan@blendedthreadsllc.com and just let them know that the Coaching 101 podcast and Daniel Chamberlain sent you. All right, good with all that, man. Let's jump in the conversation here. Kenny, I'm going to let you talk first here. First question is just about, so tonight we're talking longevity. I guess we better start there. We're talking about being at the game, like you said, Kenny. Some of you guys have been at, you're over 20 years now, right?
Yeah.
In coaching, and then Coach Swift, you talked about 30 some odd years and
41.
41 years, right? And here I am at, going into year 7 thinking I've done something. The accomplishments are not as staggering when I look at y'all's careers. But so that's kind of what we're talking about tonight, is how, as a young coach, or maybe you're at that middle of the road coach and you see the bottom kind of coming up at you, how do you kind of push that off and be in a career that you love for a long time? So first question actually is, kind of what causes coaches to burn out? What causes coaches to get out of the profession before they hit that retirement? And kind of why do some others get to keep doing this for decades on end? So Coach Simpson, we'll start with you.
All right. Well, I'll go first, and I'll pass it over to the expert there who did it longer than me. My thought would be a couple things. One, like, is this a job or a calling? Like, the guys that last, you're not, like, your job isn't a coach. You are a coach. Like, that's who you are, and that's what you wanted to do since you were, since you felt the call of helping other people. And I think we're all different. I mean, you don't have to, like, coach just like I do, but you got to have the same care for the people you're around. If that ever leaves and it becomes a job, you need to leave. Like, I mean, there's a lot of ways you can make a lot more money than doing that. And so I think that's number one, is this a calling or is this a job? The second thing I think is that keeps people around is, how's your family feel about this? Like, is your family all in or are they not? I can't speak for everybody. I've seen a lot. I'm blessed with, my wife's been all in. She's always been all in. We have kids come over to our house. They're going to come over to the house. She's going to be out there taking pictures. She's wearing our gear. She's hearing how much of an idiot I am from the bleachers and ignores it because she's all in. We're together. And so I think a lot of times that's an issue. A lot of times with coaches, it's, and wives can be different. They have their own lives, and that's okay. There are lots of ways to skin the cat. Generally, those are the guys, though, that I see, they don't make it because, and I don't blame them. If your wife's not all in, you don't need to be all in, because she's priority. Like, you better put her priority and go be with her. So I know Coach kind of mentioned I've turned down multiple college opportunities because I didn't think that was going to be good for her and me. And I don't blame her for that at all. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be with her. Third one is, do you have a life outside? Like, do you have a life outside of football? Like, what do you do when you're not doing football? Do you have interests and hobbies and things that you don't just constantly obsess about? I know, obviously, I write a lot of football material, so I obsess a lot about it, but I also travel a bunch. Like, we go do a lot of cool things with my family. I'm a big sports fan, not even just football, just I like to go watch sporting events. We have a lot of friends around this area, but I think that's kind of, for me, there's more, I'm sure, but those are the three things I'm looking at. Like, is it something you feel called to do? Like, it's hard for me to turn coaching off my brain. I don't really know how to do that. Like, that's just who I am. Like, if I'm playing in some adult league, whatever sport, I'm probably annoying everybody because I'm coaching them, because that's just kind of who I am and what I do, And so I think that's the first thing, is your family all in. I've seen a lot of coaches, that's where it's been a struggle, where the wife doesn't view things the same way the husband does. Because I don't care how good you are with your hours, they're still long hours. And if your wife is not in there with you, your family's not in there with you, that's a problem. And then finally, like I said, I think finding different hobbies outside of football, that's important.
Coach Swift, we're going to jump to you for this just a moment. But Kenny, I want to say one thing real fast is, people forget that, like, our wives, like, this is a passion to me. And I know it is to you guys because you've been at it this long. And if it wasn't a passion, I feel like the monies alone probably would have gotten you out of it a long time ago. But our wives have passions and goals and hobbies and stuff too, right? And I have found the last 2 years, due to my own ridiculousness, that I basically couldn't find a full-time gig. But honestly, looking back, it's been kind of a blessing because my wife was very passionate about physical therapy. So she got to open a clinic, get it operational, while I could handle the majority of, hey, the kid's sick, somebody's got to stay home, or the kid's got to get picked up from school early, or it's a snow day, or, you know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of life things that I think as coaches, we let our wives be default parents, and they have to handle all that stuff because, well, babe, we're busy. There's 6 other staff members and 35 kids that are depending on me to get this done. Well, so that she can often be the kind of the gopher or the go-to to get all the other stuff done at home. So it's been a weird blessing for me. And I've realized it a lot here lately that I couldn't find the full-time work for 2 years. And I got to do that while she got her stuff off the ground. And now I get that chance to transition back because she's turned something super successful. So you're right.
I do want to mention this before Kevin goes. I'm sure he's probably going to mention it, but I've been around long places, and I get to give this speech a lot at my clinics, but there's been times where we've won a lot of games and people are happy with me. And there's times we've lost a lot of games and people are not happy with me. But all those people, when their kids graduate, they're not around anymore. Like, they're not. And I don't blame them for that. Like, I'm called to do a job. My job is to serve their kid. While their kid is there, we can have a great relationship. Their kid moves on, they leave one way or the other. And if you put your stock and all your time into those, at the end of it, they're going to leave, and your family, your wife, whoever is still there. So don't get those things confused. And I don't want to go off on too much of a tangent. I don't want to steal coach's time, but who is the guy who's in the Super Bowl right now? Seahawks coach. Had the quote come out. Again, his kid's young. I'm not blaming this guy. I'm not judging this guy. That's his life and his choices. But if I saw my kid 30 minutes a day and that was a normal thing, I'd find a new job.
Yeah, no doubt. Without a doubt. 100%. Coach Swift, man, we're going to jump to you here. So kind of the same question, just what do you see that causes coaches to burn out? And what are the ones doing right that stick with it, all these decades?
Well, I think in my case, it's in my DNA. I mean, I kind of knew when I was, 11, 12 years old, I wanted to be what my dad was. I think sons grew up admiring their dad and what their dad does. And trust me, they adamantly tried to talk me out of it. When I started college, I was going into the pre-med, I was going to be a dentist. And one day I'm walking home from practice and I'm thinking to myself, I don't want to go to a lab. I don't want to look down a kid's throat my whole life and pick at teeth. I want to make a difference in life. And I think Kenny hits on this. If you look back at kids' careers, the biggest mentors, the biggest impact on them are coaches and extracurricular. I don't like the word extracurricular. I like co-curricular activities. That drama instructor, that football coach, that gymnastics coach, because you get a chance to create relationships with those kids. And Ken's right. It's a calling. I mean, it is. When I finally told my parents, hey, I hear you. I realize I'm going to be poor. I'm okay. I'm signing up for it. It's what I want to do. I'm passionate about it. And I think a couple of things help coaches. Well, let me rephrase that. Helped me with my longevity. I was talking to a coach in Georgia last night, and he thought it was really unusual that I taught still. And in the West Coast, coaches teach. When I was coaching in Southern California, I had 4 classes I taught. I had 3 periods off as an assistant and coordinator. But in Oregon, a rural school, I teach 6 periods a day, 3 preps, 4 preps. I have 1 period to be AD and be the head coach. And I think Kenny's right. You got to have hobbies, but our hobbies are all extensions of our passions. Yeah. I ran probably the largest contact team camp in the United States for 25 years. And it was a hobby, and I loved doing it. And it was exciting. And I got my family and my daughters involved in that. So I think it's got to be in your makeup. I think the other thing too that helps longevity is, when I started this profession, I wasn't married. Man, oh God, life was great. You coach football season, have a long-term job, hop on a plane and head to Indonesia in February and surf until May when you come back and you got spring ball someplace. I mean, it was the life of the surfer for a long time. It was very nice. But when I met my wife, she went in with her eyes wide open. She knew what my calling, she knew what my passion was, and that fit her. I can tell you this, and I think Kenny can say this as well. My best assistant coach is who I'm married to. She has to put up with it all. We all worry about our assistant coaches. We take care of our assistant coaches, and sometimes we let our hair down and don't take care of our wives right. And we need a strong woman to pipe up and say, "Hey, mister." And my wife has no problem doing that. And she's a great assistant coach. I mean, we had, for 30 years, we did captain's meals. We had kids at our house all the time. The student trainers had to make the desserts. And I think it was important for the kids to see me being the man of the house. I was out on the barbecue, cooking up the steaks or that, and she was in doing that. And, I think, I'm a football coach, but I want to be known for so much more than that, so much more depth to what a football coach is. For about 20 years, they bombarded us traditional men with toxic masculinity. And I think that's a very negative, that's a very harmful thing to say. If you take, I had a really interesting talk with an English teacher. If you don't make being a boy special anymore, you're going to have some issues in society. And here we are. So I work hard at teaching kids how to be those noble warriors. They finally refer to me as probably the biggest asshole they've ever had to deal with. But they also know how much I deeply and truly love them as individuals, not just football players. And then, so you got to have a supportive family. Both my daughters were all in. Mariah grew up on the sidelines. I think I made a mistake retiring in 18 because I think my youngest, I never had the relationship with my younger daughter that I have with my older for a variety of reasons, a lot of it being age. And I thought that by retiring from football and having more time to spend with her would be a good thing. And lo and behold, my youngest says, you took away all the chances for me to do what I wanted to do on the sidelines with you. And so, that's a relationship I'm still working at. And then I think the third thing is you better be thick-skinned. I mean, we're not in the business. It's not a popularity contest. I don't know who made the quote, but I mean, I don't have any tattoos. My daughters have them all for me. But if I were to get a tattoo, it would say, if you're truly a leader, you're pissing off half the people every day. Because you got to make decisions that you have to make in the position you have to make. And we're not always comfortable with them. Holy cow. I mean, I've left kids home that were ineligible that I thought the teacher screwed them out of life's not fair.
Right.
And they need a mentor. They need a man. They need someone that it can teach them that, get used to it because life's never going to be fair. And adversity is good for you. And, find a great woman. I'm blessed. I had 2 daughters and the last time I calculated about 1,200 and some odd sons. And kids that I coached 40 years ago still occasionally reach out when they want something. But
I feel you. The number of sons you gain is uncountable, I think. Because
I mean,
it's going to be exponent, right? Like I coached one kid that we let live with us for a little while. He was kind of in dire straits, and then now he's got a kid, and I get to be Coach Grandpa, right? Like, it's so. I mean, it just keeps giving back.
I think I know the last thing was the hardest for me to learn, because I really wanted everybody to like me, and my dad said, "Well, you shouldn't have been a football coach then. You should have been a priest." And I'm like, and that took me a while to learn because I work hard. I'm passionate about what I've done. I don't understand why people can't see that passion. Understand that I'm the one that went to school and the expert on it. My first 6 years as a coach in Gold Beach were hell, absolute hell. And if I hadn't grown up in an environment that I'd grown up in, and didn't learn to be thick-skinned and know how to deal with adversity, I would have crumbled. And quite frankly, I think that gets to too many young coaches who, talk about dealing with adversity, but when it comes their way, don't quite have the tools or patience or perseverance or whatever the combination may be to ride the storm out. And chances are, if you're on a storm, you're probably doing something right.
I think too, Coach, I don't want to cut you off. I mean, this is great stuff.
No, go.
I think that too many times coaches need to hear, like when we went 0-10, I thought about leaving coaching. I thought I was a failure. I didn't know what I was doing. And I had been coach of the year like 3 years ago. Like, it wasn't like but when you go through that, we're not honest that every coach at some point fails and probably wonders, am I meant to keep doing this? I think that. I don't know if you've ever had that moment. I've had that moment.
Yeah. It's a true story. It's 2000. We were really good up until about 2014, 2015. Then our enrollment started to slip and kids started to slip. And so we're over in Medford, about a 4-hour bus ride for us. And I'm getting ready for the game. And this official comes up and says, can I ask you a few questions? And I was like, yeah, sure. He goes, why are you doing it still? I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, man, you created the greatest small high school program in the state of Oregon, and it lasted, 12 years. And now you guys are pathetic. And I said, because I'm a coach. I go, Bob Lattisair is an acquaintance and pretty good acquaintance of mine. Bruce Rawlinson is a very close friend of mine. In fact, Bruce is largely responsible for me getting it going at Gold Beach High School. But those guys are anomalies. Most coaches that coach 41 years are going to be 50 games above 500, 50 games below 500. What Bob did at De La Salle was phenomenal, but that's an anomaly. What Bruce did at Mater Dei, what Bob Johnson did at Mission Viejo. I mean, I look at the legends on the West Coast, the guys that have 300 wins and just double-digit losses, and the reality of it is most of those guys are anomalies.
Right. When
I look at the coaches who to me, and it's funny you say that, Kenny. You went 0-10, you were like second-guessing yourself. I never had a losing season until I got to Gold Beach and became a head coach, and I had 3 of them. And I think the thing that I'm most proud of is all it did was motivate me to keep twisting that Rubik's Cube, to keep playing with the jigsaw puzzle, to find a way to get it to line up. And I think the proudest thing is every one of those teams that went 0 the very next season made the playoffs. Because nobody jumped ship. When you go 0-10, there's all kinds of wins. None of the parents see them. None of the press sees them. But, no one quit. Everybody kept coming to practice. Everybody showed up. Everybody took their beating like a man and came back. Everybody attacked the off-season right way. We kept our grades up. We didn't forfeit. When you travel in Oregon and our average away game is 3 to 3.5 hours away, it's easy when you're dog poop to say, hey, we got too many kids sick, too many of that, we can't play, and you forfeit. And our kids, I despise having to do that. You're gladiators. Show up, man. Show up. Take your beating. Lick your wounds. Go home. Get better. And in 2001, we went 0 and we had that ridiculous mercy rule up here, where if it gets to a certain point, it's a running clock. And our kids remembered. They wrote it on their hearts. And in 2003. In 2004, when they were juniors and seniors, and we got it going, we took care of the scars that were left on us. And we did it in a classy, noble way. You know, I'm not a big fan of running clocks and mercy. You know, I used to tell the kids, all declare the shutout. We're plenty of young kids so they can enjoy and get better in that. But you just there's as much to gain in losing as there in the winning. And I don't know how many times I've said this. You know, I've been blessed. I won 2 state titles, played in 5 of them. But there's a guy somewhere in Oklahoma, somewhere in Montana, that's going, 5-4 every year. And he's twice the coach I am because he doesn't have the resources. He doesn't have the administration behind him. He doesn't have, he doesn't have a whole lot of things. And he's finding a way to go 5-4. And that guy's a genius because coaching high school football is hard. Winning is hard. It gets harder at the next level. I was at a small college at a time. Ernie Sampese, a good friend of my family, and Coach his younger son offered me a position in the NFL. But he says, if you truly like coaching, then you stay right where you're at and you coach. Because the further you get up, it's managing egos. They better get football under control at the collegiate level or they're going to ruin the game. I mean, I like Oregon. I like Dante Moore, but no college athlete deserves $7.5 million to play quarterback when you're supposed to be getting a great education, for crying out loud.
Right.
And he's a great kid. But, I mean, what are we doing?
Well, Coach, I'm going to cut this short. I don't want to get too far into the, man, you can dive right
No,
off.
I don't want to go down that rabbit hole either. Right?
That's a whole new episode in itself, right? About modern day college football. A couple things that I have kind of been taught and have leaned into this, to prevent myself from burning out or losing the ability to coach the game. I made an early career mistake, right? And I think that's one a lot of people work out of is you make a career mistake early. Kenny, one that you talk about a lot is taking a bad job, right? You take a bad job, you get beat down. You're not coach of the year 3 years before you go 0-10. You're just 0-10. And it's hard to rebound off of that, right? If you don't have something, if you haven't built a foundation, the first thing you do is burn your house down. So you ain't got a lot to build back on. Okay. So that's a quick career ender, I feel like. And I mean, my career was, I tried to do too much too early, right? There was some other peripheral things going on that were out of my control, but something within my control. I could have said no to the job I took, and it was something I wasn't ready for. I thought I was. I thought I knew ball. I jumped in 2 feet, and it swallowed me right up, right? So very early career mistake. Hurt me in my area for sure, and I've had to do a lot of driving because of that mistake. So once again, it was the job I took. It was a mistake I made, was thinking I was ready when I wasn't. So I feel like early career mistakes are something that shortens a lot of careers. You just never can bounce back. You got to have that. One of y'all said it a while ago, but being resilient, right? The ability to ride through the storm. Like, it's going to happen. So can you kind of survive it and come out the other side, or do you let it kind of take you down? So we're hoping that we're on the other side. The other thing I wanted to say was,
if I could speak to that, I think another thing that caused, you touch on the fact that, you get burnt when you're young and you're like, oh man, this isn't for me. I'm out of it. People ask me, why'd you wait so long to become a head coach? I never thought I was worthy to be a head coach. I mean, and I would say this to any young coach, it's not the X's and O's. It's not the scheme. It's not the fundamentals. It's the relationships and dealing with all the administrative stuff that you're not ready for. No one really knows. Very few people, Kenny's wife knows, but very few people know everything that Kenny has to do every day as a head coach. Because no one, he's protecting his assistants to a certain degree, because I think they're making 2 or 3 cents an hour if they're lucky, and so I don't think anybody truly understands what it goes in. And, maybe I waited too long, but I'll tell you this, and Kenny can attest to this. We all live in good old boy networks. We all do. I mean, I started applying for head coaching jobs probably by 10 years after I got going. And I would always lose to a guy that had experience, but his experience was going 4-5, 5-4, 4-5, 5-4, and never, getting to the promised land. But because he knew somebody was a good old boy, and that, and that's in Southern California. And then I get to Oregon thinking it's a pyramid hole. It's up here too.
Yeah.
We all live in regions where everybody's provincial, everybody's a good old boy, and I think good old boy. Now I can't stand good old boy networks because all they do is protect mediocrity.
But we have to.
How can
you're not wrong?
How can
we have to admit that they're there, and we have to find you just got to outlast them, right? At some point, it might be waiting until a phase retires, or there's another thing too, and we see this in the military a lot. It's like you're always viewed at your entry level, right? If you stick around, you may get passed over for a coordinator job or head coach job because all they can see you for is you graduated high school here 4 years ago. Well, no, I didn't. I graduated high school here 24 years ago, and I went to college, and I have a family, and I'm a grown. Well, but you've only been where you are, right? Sometimes you just gotta get outside the known. The last one he talks about this quite often is you better have something that you're in it for that isn't the wins, right, Kenny? And you talked about this as you started getting more and more wins. All of a sudden, you're 10-0, you're 14-0. You quit celebrating the wins because, well, it's expected. And really what you're trying to get now is the gold ball or whatever your state trophy is, right? That championship at the end. So you better have something in it that even if you get really good at the coaching, you get really good at the wins, you better have something that keeps you going after that because, in my opinion, I think that winning doesn't cure everything. And eventually something's going to give. So let's jump into the next question before we get too much involved on that one. How do you evolve as a coach without losing your core identity? Kenny, I know we're going to let you speak first on all these, but so I know you've done this a lot, right? You came from a spread guy, and then now you're a honoree wing tee guy as you're doing the gun tee stuff. So how did you evolve as a coach without losing that core identity so you can stay at it, but stay you too?
I think you better be constantly evolving. I bet even Coach Swift, later in your career, you can't just run the same stuff. I mean, there's value in tradition. There's value in the core of football. That doesn't change. Blocking and tackling and fundamentals, they don't change. Those are going to constantly be what's always going to be important in football. It's not going to change. However, if you're not constantly evolving yourself as a coach, you got problems. For me, my questions I'd ask is within your system, whatever you run, your structure, can you adjust to your personnel every season? Like, can you run the same structure, but this year our quarterback looks like this, and this year he looks like that, and this year our line looks like this, and it looks like that. And I don't want to go from when we're good, we run spread, and when we suck, we run under center. Like, I don't think that's a good answer. I think your answers need to be within your system. Can you highlight what they can and can't do? So I think that's a big one. I think the next one is every year you have to evaluate your best players and you have to play to them. Like, you got to play to those guys. Coach mentioned already, 5-4 might be the best you can do. If you go 5-4 and you only got one weapon, man, you did a really good job as a coach. Right. You did a really good job if you can play to that guy and maximize it. Coach Holmes, who's leaving me to be a head coach, says, are we bumping our head on the ceiling? Like, are we getting every ounce of everything we can out of these kids? And if the answer is not yes, then you need to evolve your structure to help that kid do that. Instead of Bill Belichick, another quote where he talked about, I don't want to hear about what the guy can't do. I want to hear about what he can do. And then it's our job to let that happen. The other thing I put on here is, can you hide players? Like, there's going to be years where you got to play 11 and you only got 7. Do you have a structure where you can hide what they can and can't do? Because a lot of times we say, well, I only got 7 good players. What are the other 4? What are their strengths? Well, let's make sure we're putting them in an area where we can hide their deficiencies, and we can showcase their strengths, especially on offense. I don't think there's a reason in the world, unless you just don't have any athletes, why you shouldn't be able to be successful on offense, because you control the game. Like, you control who gets the ball, how they get the ball, what you're doing to get them the ball. And finally on here, I put down like, and I think this is a big one. Are you willing to hire innovative minds onto your staff and give them the power to help you change things? We have a lot of changes, Daniel, I've got like 7,000 gun T books, where they're how we evolved. That's kind of what we do. Some of those were not my ideas. Some of those were Bo Gould's ideas. He came on there and said, "Hey, coach, what do you think about this? And are you setting up a structure where, one, that guy wants to work for you, and two, you listen to him when he says something that's good? Are you providing that?" Or I think coaches fall in one or two places. Either they don't give anyone a voice and just kind of give them marching orders. That's what most coaches kind of fall into. Yeah. Or the other one is they can't sort through the good and the bad. We let someone else have ownership, and then we throw them under the bus when they fail, instead of giving them kind of guardrails where they know, okay, this is okay, this is not okay. Do you have a relationship where you can call a guy and say, "Hey, man, that was really dumb"? Like, can you do that with somebody and them not get offended? Like, I'm not calling you dumb. I'm glad you tried it, but that didn't work. However, I'm going to give you the authority to keep doing X, Y, or Z. And I think, like for me, a lot of our changes on defense, like I put up some 3-4 material. I think he's a great defensive coordinator the last 2 or 3 years. He's doing stuff that I'm uncomfortable with, but it's really good stuff. And so I'm going to be uncomfortable so we can win. I'm not so sure about that. Don't do that. Is it going to help us? Can you show me how it's going to help us? Then let that guy innovate. And I think for me, that's it. Coach Swift, I'm curious for you. I'm not going to change the question because I want to hear your thoughts on this. But right now, I think I can trace back. I've got 6 former head coaches that have coached for me, like guys that are now head coaches or were head coaches at one point. 6. And all of them, some of them do exactly like we do. Some do a lot different. Some do whatever. But you hope you've made an impact on them. How many guys that work for you have gone on to become a head coach? And how's that? 0. All right, that's interesting.
None.
In a small school.
No. I mean, I love your answers, Keeney, because those are great answers. I'm gonna piggyback on some of them. I think the biggest area I evolved in is I'm a defensive guy. I really had no use for offense either as a player or anything. I didn't have to play both ways in high school. I played defense only. I was a defensive mercenary for a long time. And then I get to Gold Beach, Oregon as a head coach. And my dad says, "You're going to step back in time." I go, "What do you mean?" He goes, "You're going to go back to the 50s. I go, "Well, yeah, what does that mean?" He goes, "You're not going to have any assistant coaches. You're not going to have a trainer. You're not going to have an equipment man. It's going to be you." And I was like, nah, no one's that far back. And the son of a gun was right. And so I am such a better coach because of that. Because in Southern California, you need an offensive line coach, you hire him. You need a defensive line coach, you hire him. I had nobody because everybody thought I was going to fail. It's a small town, It's Oregon. It's very, very provincial. I'm a Californian. There's strike one, and so getting them to buy in was terrible. So I had the way I evolved is, how do I convince quality men to become coaches? My athletic director that hired me, who wasn't coaching when I hired me, was an all-stater at a big high school up the coast, played small college ball. He knew the game. He didn't want to risk losing in his reputation. And so you have to create that relationship. Hey, this is a guy worth partnering up with to change the stars of the program. About 2003, when we got it going, I hired a young kid out of Southern Oregon that was an offensive lineman on some of the really good teams, whose wife got hired as our Spanish teacher. And he was our IT guy. And so I evolved in, how do I take guys who, while they're passionate about football, they know nothing about being an assistant coach. They know nothing about, they're really good at relationships. They're really good at knowing kids, but they don't really know good, at the basics of football, some of them. So, we involved in the fact that during our summer camp, my school had the best coaching staff in all America because I brought up the offensive line coach from Modern Day. I brought the defensive back coach from Boise State, and they worked with other teams, but they primarily worked with our team so they could teach my assistant coaches how to coach. And at the same time, I think the thing that all of us don't utilize enough is how my seniors in turn can become my best coaches coaching the underclassmen. We're in the gym one day during the summer, running inside veer left, and my freshman asked, how many times are we going to run this? And my all-state offensive tackle said, I don't know, at least 5,000-6,000 times before the season even gets here. It's going to be muscle memory. You're going to have to, we talked about doing things when you're physically and mentally exhausted. That was our whole mantra. We were going to outwork you, outlast you. We and no offense, because you look like you're in, but I grew up on the north gate of Camp Pendleton. My kids didn't get recruited a lot, but they love wearing that Marine uniform. The number of kids that played for me at Gold Beach that have chosen careers in the Marines, I can't tell you how proud I am of that.
I'll forgive you for sending them off to the Marines, but
you're all fighting for the same flag, doing the same thing, and I got respect for all the branches. I really do. I mean, and so I evolved that way. I didn't change schemes as much as we're under center because it's just who I am. We're under center. I tight end. People say they don't have tight end. I said, well, you're called coach, So we have tight end and we run the veer. We run exactly what De La Salle ran for years, but instead of split backs, running I backs. And our evolution is, how do we create players to fit that? Kenny's right. There were years I had quarterbacks that couldn't throw. So we didn't, but years that I had quarterbacks, I mean, we ran a great 3-step and 1-step pass game, and we had no problem. We were playing somebody in the first round of the playoffs, and he told their kid Swift does not want to throw the ball. He wants to run the option. Went 9-man front. We threw for 400 yards. No, I don't want to throw, but I want to win.
Right. And
if you're going to 9-man front, we're going to tear you a new one throwing the ball because I had a kid that could throw. But I evolved in creating staff out of nothing. I look at the evolution. We had no student trainers. I swore when I was a head coach I would never tape an ankle. So I took 2 girls the first time I got here, sent them to a summer camp so they learned how to tape ankles. So the following year we run our camp. I have 4 highly qualified certified trainers that I pair with 5 student trainers, and I never have to tape an ankle in my career here at Gold Beach. We didn't have a weight room. So I used the money we raised for camp to build one of the best small school, high schools, weight rooms in the country. I evolved. My evolution is, how do I go to a non-football school and make them a football school? Yeah. Particularly when they've always had athletes.
You got to think outside the box for sure, right?
Well, I would tell coaches, quit going to U of O, quit going to Oregon State. You don't have those athletes. You're never going to have those athletes. Go find a guy. For me, it was Heppner. Heppner's, 12 hours away, Eastern Oregon. A buddy of mine, single wing. They do the serpentine out. They're unbalanced. It's like watching the 1940s. My dad's heart was going, oh, this is, and so, I picked his brain. I learned from him. I create that network. I look at the 25 years of us running camp, And, there's my coaching tree. How many guys came to Gold Beach and bought into the camp and bought into how we train kids and created the head coach at New Mexico State's a good friend of mine because for 5 years he brought his high school from California here. We had a playoff game in the eastern part of the state, 18 hours away. And we got there the night before and we had time to kill. So I called my superintendent and said, hey, can we go to Boise State 45 minutes away and watch this team that's come to our camp in the semis? And we get there and their folks welcome us, treat us to a great pregame dinner. So I evolved because when I started this, I was that silent, strong, ugly warrior. I never wanted to be AD. And when the AD stepped down,
all of us, coach.
he goes, you need to be the athletic director. I'm like, why? He goes, because the whole state thinks you're a fucking dick. And I go, well, I am. When I cross those lines, yeah, I'm not. My job is to win games and exert our physical superiority on you. I mean, that's my job. But he was right. When I became an AD, all of a sudden everybody got to know me and they respected me even more as a football coach because they knew that was just one part of me, not who. I mean, so I don't know if I evolved scheme and that. I think I evolved as a coach and as a person. When I was young, I never would have had a beer with someone I was going to coach. I mean, think about it. I went to Servite, and modern days, our most biggest rival. We hate those bastards. But when I had to get my team going together, I didn't know the head coach at Servite anymore. I called Bruce Rollinson, and he welcomed me with open arms. And you know what I found out? Just two different Catholic schools, different mascots, different colors, same message.
Yeah.
And so my evolution came more as a coach and as a person. Then, Ken's going to laugh. My dad for 100 years says, you got to put in the buck sweep. And I'm like, we're a pure option team, Dad. Why am I going to put in the buck sweep? But I could never get that rocket toss that those flexbone teams to work. And then, the wing tee's a cult, as we all know. And so I'm seeing 3 or 4 teams running it. So we have to do scout buck sweep. And I finally said, I'm going to put in buck sweep. And it becomes one of our best complementary plays. And Kenny will attest to this. You want to keep that defensive end guessing. If you're down blocking all the time like you do in Veer, hooking that guy every now and then becomes it stops him from crashing down as much.
Right.
On Veer. And we killed and my dad's probably smiling in his grave right now. I mean, we killed people with it. So I think, I think I evolved. Kenny said he mellowed. I can't mellow.
It's okay, man.
Passionate.
It happens different for everybody.
My dad said my dad paid me a great compliment, and I want to share this because I think this is important for young coaches who want to last to hear. I could undress a kid like no one else. I got the gift from my mother, not my father. All right, but I could have that kid on the verge of tears, and for some reason, 30 seconds later, I would have my arms around him saying, I love you. It has nothing to do with you. It has to do with you're a better player with that. You came out unmotivated. You're hurting the team. If you're hurting the team, how are you going to take care of your wife and children when they're sick and you got to step up? I don't know where I got that gift.
We call that coaching them hard and loving them harder, right? Like you got to be willing to put your foot down and then put your arm around them. So
yeah,
I think as other younger coaches are watching and you're thinking about how you might have to evolve. For instance, I had a job and I was told we're not going to do things your way. We're going to do it the way it's always been done. Well, you can't. I don't think you can have that mentality, Kenny. I honestly with the products that you put out and the national spread of the gun tee, I find it surprising that it isn't as hard for you to give up and go, hey, you know what? Let's get that put in. because it is hard when you got something that works to change, right? Change is already hard, but especially when you're being successful, until you realize the change is what's keeping you successful.
I think
So
the
just
biggest way,
evolving your
biggest way
scheme
I
versus
evolved.
sorry, coach. Let me the difference in evolving your scheme versus chasing trends. You can't watch football every Saturday and go put that offense in. You can't change your offense. You got to keep that scheme evolving. I think a big one is your coaching philosophy. I think we all have a philosophy in the beginning that's great for a beginning coach. I have a coaching philosophy right now that is wonderful for a eventual first-year head coach, right? To have, I mean, I have one as a coordinator. I have one as an assistant coach. But getting your philosophy established when you're not the head coach, as we all know, is a little bit more difficult. But as you go on through the years, I feel like your philosophy has to change at least a little bit. It may, I love like Joe's philosophy is just coach simple, play fast, win. I don't know that one has to change. I think the scheme around it changes, right? And what does simple mean may evolve a little bit, but I don't think his philosophy, I guess, has to change. But I think I want to make sure I'm going to be adding to mine as time goes on. We're going to push on to the third one here because we're already at an hour and we still got two big questions. All right. So how much of longevity, and Kenny, we're coming back to you here. So how much of your time in football has been about the people you're around and not just X's and O's and not just football?
I think Coach kind of mentioned it quite a bit. He's talking about, as you get on nearer to the back end of it, you see the fruits. You think about it like a farmer. I'm not a farmer. I don't really understand how that works, but I'd imagine you work really, really hard to put a bunch of seeds in the ground, and then you just kind of wait and don't really know what's going to happen until the end. It's kind of that way with coaching. I mean, you put a lot of time and effort into a lot of people, and you don't really know what's going to take. Because I'm sure Coach could probably share stories. We've got success stories that we like to go back and talk about. I've got failures, where I didn't treat a guy like I probably should have treated him. He went down a different path. Were there other things that could contribute to that? Absolutely. I'm not going to just live in guilt. But were there things I wish I could have done differently that might have helped him? Absolutely. But you don't get to go back and do that stuff. So I think that's one of the things that makes it difficult with the relationship part for a young coach is you don't really see the repercussions. Very rarely are they immediate. Wins are immediate, and so we kind of focus on that. Oh, if I do this, I can motivate our team and we can succeed on the scoreboard. And we have to do that. You got to win. I'm not debating that. I want to win as bad as anybody else. That being said, as you get older, you start to kind of recognize you want to win, but you want to win the right way. And I think that's where it changes a bit. And so I think that's why it's tough for maybe a younger coach to recognize the importance of relationships. But I think that's like your question kind of asked there. It is what you got in to do this for is people, not football, and I can put out scheme books. And I know this is still true because I sell books. So I sell books that talk about scheme, and I sell books that I think are more important that talk about leadership. I have both of them. The books that talk about buck sweep fly off the shelf. Coaches want that. The books that talk about deeper meaning, leadership, relationships, they don't fly off the shelf quite as fast. They don't sell quite as fast because, again, for coaches, a lot of times we're not looking long-term down the road of this stuff matters more than this. And so a lot of coaches will hit me up for, hey, coach, give me a play to help me win, or give me an RPO to help me win, or give me a drill to help me win. And obviously those things matter. I produce those things and I want to help. Those don't matter nearly as much as, like Coach Swift mentioned, how you handle people. How are you grooming people? He mentioned how are you handling a difficult situation where you're the only coach. Like there's not a manual for that. Like I got Bo Gould, I think the best O-line coach I've ever had out of Home Depot. He was coaching a little kid youth football. And now I think he's an elite offensive line coach because we're willing to think outside the box, look at the person, and then teach the scheme. There's a lot of coaches I've got that way. They're teaching in the building. They played football, maybe not. I can see that they're a great person. I can teach them the scheme. So I think a lot of times we look at relationships, for me, more about the coaching end, because kids matter too, but more about the coaching end. To me, I think that's what's going to keep you long term. That's what's going to keep you in it. Because otherwise, you kind of mentioned it, Daniel. We were almost numb winning this year. Like, we were used to winning; it was almost numb, and it had to be kind of a constant reminder of we're not just here to win games. We're here for more than that. And I think that's the coaches that do that. I think are going to be able to hang in longer. That doesn't mean winning's not important, but it does mean they see a bigger picture.
Yep. Coach, kind of the same thing to you there, man. Just how much have you leaned
on
to keep your career going?
I think the journey and the football family helps promote your longevity. I'm a firm believer that while our scheme is solid and fundamentally sound, we're beating people with our culture and relationships. I learned this from Coach Ladisser on one of his documentaries. When you love who you're playing with, you make sure that you don't fail.
Yeah.
That brotherhood. And I think I think that's what we did. And it's important to say we, my wife, the guys who I did get into coaching, we created a brotherhood that people wanted to belong to. People were willing to sacrifice and do things to be, we always talked about everybody wants to live forever, but it doesn't happen. So what can you do in this small little town to leave a legacy? Well, you can leave a legacy by winning a state championship, and that's great. But more importantly, how did you win that state championship? Did everybody stay eligible? Did you have any discipline issues during anything? Did anybody, get ejected and none of us are perfect. Man, I got enough baggage for a U-Haul. But because I got all that baggage, that means I've lived a full life that I haven't gone through life cautiously. I've gone through with passion, forward thinking. And I think those are the things. I love the game of football, but I think I love the people involved in the game of football more than I actually love the game of football. Does that make sense?
Yep.
The players, the journey, the coaches, the opposing coaches, those. It's such a great game that we celebrate so much at the high school level. It's so important to communities. It's so important to the kids have those things that give them a sense of wow, I put my nose to the grindstone, I worked hard, and I can accomplish anything. I always tell people, if I'm raising great husbands, great community members, and great citizens, then I don't have to worry about wins. They'll happen.
Yep.
But I think Kenny's the same thing. I know Kenny's very passionate about it, but I also know by all the things that Kenny does, what keeps him going in football is the same thing that kept me going. It's the people.
Yep.
They're some of the best people on the planet. Salt of the earth type people.
Yep. I want to kind of hit this from a little bit different point of view and talk about, how looking forward, I intend to get years and years and years out of this career. And that's the way I did it in the military, right? I'm almost at 20 years in the military this June. Where are we at? We're in January. So 5 months-ish. I hit my 20th year, and it's been through building up, developing people, and then trusting them, right? Trust them, let them do their job. Delegate. You can't do everything, right? You can't be the guy that's constantly has to be the one with pen to paper on every aspect of your program, or I think that you will get burnout. We kind of talked about start the show off, Kenny. You talked, with family. My wife eventually is going to get sick and tired of me having to do everything. Like, have you not developed a coach you trust yet? Like, hire somebody. Jeez. Like, and so, that's kind of one way I look at it. Building that community within the coaching staff and the families, getting the families together. That's something that's, I've taken from many coaches that I've got to coach with and put it into my coaching packet, right? It's going to be, I said, it takes a tribe or it takes a village. Like, yeah, 100%. And I expect us to build that too through what will be the tightest community, the coaches in the office. Because if you're in the office and you don't think that you can be a part of our community, like, you're probably in the wrong office anyways, right? I'm not saying you're a good coach, bad coach, but I feel like that's just how it's going to be. And then the player relationships, and this is one I can speak on from the player side. I still get to reach out to my high school coach all the time, right? I consider him a mentor in life, one of the best people I know in life. I call him often, talk to him about everything on earth, and that's Coach Kenny Ridley. And there's nothing I can't call him for or about, bounce ideas off of, need a favor, whatever. And I think that at some point I will be that for more than one guy. Obviously, I said earlier, I got to experience that once with Shannon, but I feel like more and more of those will happen as time goes on. So once again, that longevity, just seeing the fruits of our labor. Kenny, you said at the start, you plant the seed now and you wait on that to grow. Maybe it's a kid that comes back 5 years later, 10 years later, 20 years later. You never know. And you get a random text or whatever. So that's what I'm excited for, is to be at this so long that I do start to get to coach the sons of the players I've already coached, right? I know then, you've been at it a while, I guess, if you're teaching the sons of your former players. So anyway, we're looks like coach probably got a call. That's what this does. If somebody gets a call, they just blink out. He'll bounce back.
I don't know where I went.
He's coming back. We got you.
Holy cow. I don't know.
We're good. Well, hey, we pushed way into time here. I know we had originally talked about an hour or so. So we're going to start cutting her down here. Kenny, real quick, the sponsors, okay, just don't forget to go check out Ace Sports. They're putting up video boards all over the country. They're doing it for schools regardless of size, but I think you can get a video board anywhere. I think that you can go find any company that's going to put a video board up. But what Ace does right is to help you learn the fundraising side. They help you to understand how to make monies off that thing that they're installing, not just getting a cool TV at the end of your field or in the bleachers at your basketball arena or whatever. So check out acesports.com, winningedgeperformanceanalytics.com. Go over and talk to Doug to see what 2.0 looks like this year. And then Blended Threads LLC, local spot here in Oklahoma. Once again, especially if you're an Oklahoma coach, reach out to them. But you want anywhere in the nation, they can get something to you. So Morgan at blendedthreadsllc.com is the email. Shoot them an email. Just let them know the podcast sent you there. Just get a quote, right? It doesn't mean you have to go order through them right now. Let them know that you're interested and see what they have to offer. It's Morgan at blendedthreadsllc.com. All right, man, let's get it closed out here. Coach Swift, if somebody wanted to reach out and talk a little bit of ball with you, where's the best place for them to go, social media wise or email or whatever?
I'm at kevinswift@hotmail.com. That's how long I've had that email. I don't have to put any numbers or anything at it. So, just kevinswift@hotmail.com. I have a new Twitter account because I got hacked by a crypto miner.
Yes, you did.
And then you can't get it. You can't get it back unless you've paid for the blue mark. So I now have a blue mark, which means I can't get hacked, I guess. I don't know. But anyways, I'm at Coach K-Dog Swift on Twitter. Yeah, that's it. I don't do Facebook. I don't my daughters start me on Instagram. I just don't know. So no, I love to talk ball. I talk ball all the time. Reach out. I'll give you a call.
So reach out to you on
And
email or Twitter, and then you can get all the rest of the
you-
details there, right?
Well, and then you can always ask me for the access to the football tool chest, which is my marriage saver. Instead of dropping money and going to a clinic one weekend, stay home, take your wife to a nice dinner, and do a little clinicking in the morning, via the computer from the comfort of your own house. I think a lot of coaches, longevity becomes an issue because they don't know how to have balance in their life. You got to give your wife her time and what she needs, or she's going to burn out on you. I started it about 8 years ago with a guy named Chris Fisher who runs Texas High School Football Chat, and I kind of taken it over, but we kind of want it to be like the Library of Congress of football resources, and it's all free. No one's making any money off of it. And we probably have things that we shouldn't have, but I don't care. But I want coaches to have the tools to get better.
I love it. That's an excellent way to get back to them too. Just a little resource that a lot of coaches can get to. I am at Coach Chambo OK on Twitter/X. You can email me at chamberlainfootballconsulting@gmail.com. And then the Patreon is a good place to go to help me save my marriage by making a little bit of side money. Got to help put all that. We're having a third kid, Kenny. I got to figure out how to put 3 kids through college now. That's 3 first vehicles.
No, don't put them in college. Send them to trade schools.
3
Pick your favorite one.
There we go. So jump over to patreon.com /Chamberlain Football Consulting and see if there's a tier that fits you. If not, shoot me a DM, a text, a call, an email, and we'll build a tier out that fits your budget and what you need. Kenny, where are you at, sir?
All things FB Coach Simpson. So I had FB Coach Simpson on Twitter, FB Coach Simpson at Gmail, and of course we've got the clinics. I just got the email from Jamie. Headsets is done and is going to be going out. So if you're listening live, get ready. I'll try to get the email set up to go out either this weekend or early next week, and I'll have it posted on the website. So free football magazine.
I'm back in, Kenny. I took a hiatus.
I saw your article. They look good too. Shifts, emotions, and stuff. So it's going to be good.
Jump in there, boys. Jump in and figure it out. The headsets is fun. If you want to write, if you want to look, it goes on my resume now. I am a published author because I'm in a magazine 10 times now. If you want to write an article for Kenny, where do they just shoot you an email?
Yeah, shoot me an email. I think we had 3 new guys this season, and we're adding another one. So it ranges. You got guys Coach Swift wrote for us a couple of years ago, and with his experience, we've had guys that are first-year coaches, JV coaches. We want a wide variety, and that's the purpose of the magazine.
And get in the magazine or read. Just go. It's another resource, another one out there for real coaches.
Free.
Kenny, you know what I would love to see in your magazine, which is a wonderful resource for people, and I know you can find one. Can we get a parent to write, what a parent should look and act like with their father, with their son or daughter's, career? I mean,
I'll say this, and I always give grace to parents. I know we're kind of trying to close the show out here, but I'll give you this real quick story. I actually wrote in Headsets about this. I was usually very hypercritical of parents. Then I was a parent of a daughter playing basketball who was always one off of the rotation. Like she was the 6th best girl if they were playing 5, 7th if they were playing 6. It was difficult, but it taught me a lot of patience because in my head as a coach, I knew the truth. In my heart as a parent, I was just as mad as all those other morons up in the stands because I was one of those morons up in the stands. So I think that's the best way for everyone to go through it is parents need to coach and coaches need to be a parent. And then we maybe can at least
we'd all get along,
work together.
Here's a quick story. Here's a quick story about me. So I came home my junior year unhappy about some of my playing time at Servite and went to my dad, hey, you're a coach, speak on my behalf. And he laughed at me. He goes, got me, coach. He goes, but I'm raising you to be a man. He says, if you got a problem with your playing time, you get in there and you talk to coach. And I think that was the best advice he ever gave me. I didn't get a whole lot more playing time my junior year, but I was a great starter and a great senior year. But I think, yeah, I mean, you look. There was an article ESPN came today. Coaches are being driven out by these out of control parents, and it would be nice if somebody could write an article saying, "Hey, this is the way it's supposed to go down. This is the way you're supposed to deal with your frustration." And at the end of the day, this is about your kid, not you. So
I'll work. I'll tell you what, you've been a dad. Feel free to write it and I'll put it in there.
Oh yeah, I know. Hey, we're still dads. You never get out of it.
Right.
That's right. Awesome. Podcast is at Coaching 101 Pod. If you want to find it on Twitter, and you can listen to these live there. If you're already seeing it live now, then you found us. Congratulations. We're over on YouTube. It just shares to Kenny's YouTube, my Facebook. We're trying to do things in multiple places. Hopefully you found us live. There's 100+ people watching right now, so that's been awesome. Thank you guys for being live watchers. We want to thank you for being a listener of the Coaching 101 podcast. We hope you join us next week as we continue to make the complex more simple. Please consider subscribing to the show so you'll always know when the new episodes are out. Coach Swift, thanks so much for jumping on with us, man. It's early in the day for you. What am I talking about? Heck, you were barely just had lunch. I forget about time goes back. Absolutely. We'll leave you with this. It's hard to beat someone who never gives up. No matter the situation, find the way.